Hello everyone and welcome back to Monsters of the Deep. As always, I'm your host Mr.G. Well, today we're talking about one of the most famous cases in marine biology of a new species being discovered. And by that, I mean rediscovered because of reasons I'll be talking about in a moment. Today we're talking about the curious case of the coelacanth. Coelacanth refers to any fish in the coelacanthiform order. They're fish, they're carnivores, they were discovered in 1938, and they live in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Now, coelacanths are actually pretty big fish, being about the same size as a grown adult. The best way to describe coelacanths is leftovers from a simpler time in Earth's history. Bearing a great resemblance to fish from the Paleozoic, the coelacanth is appropriately old, having first appeared during the Devonian. Not to mention that those extinct fish are actually the coelacanth's closest relative, alongside the equally primitive lungfish. Coelacanths are part of the now mostly gone fish group known as the lobe-finned fish, and it has a special method of swimming different from basically every other fish. They barely ever actually do any swimming themselves, and instead mostly ride the currents while using their fins to keep steady. Coelacanths live in very deep water with very little sunlight. During the day, they tend to stay in caves, coming out at night to feed. Now, as most paleo fans know, the coelacanth was actually thought to have been extinct due to the fact that we only had fossils of the fish, and they seemed to stop after the KPG mass extinction. However, in 1938, a fisherman off the coast of South Africa ended up hooking one of these fish, which completely blew the minds of the scientific community. I mean, just imagine how you would feel if you caught an animal that was supposed to be dead. I think you would be equally shocked. Although I'm tempted to wonder if the guy who caught it knew it was a coelacanth, or he didn't know what it was, he brought it to be identified, and they identified it as a coelacanth. Oh well, riddle for the ages, I guess. One last thing to note, it's often been said that coelacanths have been unchanged for millions of years, but that's actually not true. Coelacanths are actually pretty diverse, especially during the olden times when coelacanths could take all sorts of forms. There were even freshwater coelacanths and filter-feeding coelacanths at one point. I'm getting really tired of saying coelacanth. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's look at the card. Okay, there's a few things to say about this card. First of all, it kind of overblows a coelacanth's importance, and it says that coelacanths are the ancestors of all vertebrae. What? No, that is not the case. Okay, maybe it was poor wording and it means that they're relatives to the ancestors. Oh, no, wait, no. It literally says it, most likely referring to coelacanths, was the ancestor to all vertebrae. It also recounts the fact that coelacanths are living fossils, which has recently been debunked as not true since coelacanths have changed plenty of times during history. And it also claims that coelacanths lay eggs even though we know they give live birth. So, 7 out of 10. Okay, now with coelacanths, there is one thing about them that we need to address right away. And it involves probably my favorite group of people ever, cryptozoologists! Yay! Coelacanths are often held up as proof that cryptozoologists are right and there really are undiscovered creatures out there. However, the thing for me, personally, is I really do not consider coelacanths to be cryptids. Why? Let me explain. You see, coelacanths were thought to have been extinct because we had their fossils, and they just seem to have stopped at one point. I'll explain why that is later, but bear with me. Coelacanths were never sighted, but no one believed the person who sighted them. There were literally no records of coelacanths until 1938. It's not like one day someone went swimming and was like, "Hey, I saw a coelacanth," and then another guy's like, "No, you didn't." So yeah. Until coelacanths were discovered, they were considered extinct animals. They were never cryptids at any point. Please stop treating them as such. Secondly, coelacanths are often held up as proof of other cryptids like Bigfoot or Nessie or even frickin' Megalodon. Let me explain what is wrong here. Coelacanths live in very deep water in caves during the day. Bigfoot is an ape that lives in the woods of the United States and Canada. Nessie is a giant monster that lives in the water that is part of a group of animals, presumably, that needs to breathe air. And Megalodon is a surface hunting predator that eats whales. All three of these things seem like they would be pretty easily discovered, unless they were somehow actively trying to hide. And about the whole never finding coelacanths after the KPG extinction thing, that's because coelacanths, due to their lifestyle, would be very unlikely to preserve into fossils. Oh, and by the way, we actually have found Cenozoic coelacanths afterwards. Megalodon fossils are incredibly common, so the fact that we don't have a single megalodon fossil past the point of its extinction should be proof enough. Oh, and before you bring up that stupid thing that allegedly was a megalodon tooth that's only 1,000 years old, that was dated using very, very, very controversial dating methods that are notoriously unreliable. So yeah, please stop comparing a 6-foot-long fish that lives in caves to a giant shark that eats whales. They are not compatible. Okay, what else? You can't really eat coelacanths since their meat isn't edible by human standards and would cause indigestion if you tried to eat it. And for media, coelacanths actually tend to pop up a lot in prehistoric media of all places. Even a lot of books about prehistoric animals will often have coelacanths even if they don't have a single other living animal. In fact, I actually have this dinosaur encyclopedia, and coelacanths are in there despite there being literally no other living animal. So yeah, coelacanths have definitely made their mark on paleontology. Oh yeah, and coelacanths are pretty infamous in the Animal Crossing community for the fact that they are the rarest fish in the game, only being able to be caught when it rains. I'm not sure how that works exactly. Does something about the rain drive coelacanths to the surface or something? I don't get the logic there, but whatever. And coelacanths were the inspiration for the Pokemon Relicanth, down to the fact that Relicanth was also thought to have been extinct. That's all for this episode of Monsters of the Deep. Join us next time when Eric atones for his sins. Bye!